This virtual festival has been organized by Youth Celebrate Diversity, and the festival is proudly sponsored by Boeing.
Hello, my name is Joslin, and I would like to introduce this next guest who will be opening our festival today. His name is Tay Anderson, and he's the director of Denver Public Schools, which is the largest school district in Colorado. And he is also the youngest African American to ever be elected into public office. Director Tay Anderson has led and became the face of many of Denver's Black Lives Matter protests, while he has helped many youth promote their student-led ones. I'm pleased to introduce Director Tay Anderson. Hello.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How's your day been?
It's been pretty good.
Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate this a lot.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Director Tay Anderson. I am one of the at-large members on the Denver Public Schools Board of Education, and super excited to be here with all of you. I'm the youngest African American ever elected to office. I'm 22 years old, and so I am relatively close to some of you all in age, and excited to continue to represent each and every one of you on the Denver School Board, especially those who are Denver Public School students. I saw that we had a DSA student in the opening video, and super thrilled about the leadership that is being exhibited throughout your organization and throughout our city and our great state.
That's amazing. So what I first wanted to talk to you about is that I know in my little introduction, I spoke about how you did become the face of many Black Lives Matter protests. So I just want to ask you, what got you involved in activism in the first place, and what other marches have you been to?
If I started to list the marches that I've been to, I would be giving you a very detailed list. Mm-hmm. However, I got started in activism in 2016 on the death of Philando Castile. Was on my 18th birthday. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I just had enough of unarmed African Americans being murdered by law enforcement. And so this was our opportunity to stand up to say no more. We are going to be able to stand up and to ensure that Black lives do matter.
Yeah, I remember that. I was very young because I'm only 17 now. So I remember seeing that on the news. And it makes me very angry is that most of these things aren't heard of unless if there's a video being presented. So it really makes me question, how many African Americans who have been killed where there wasn't someone recording.
Yeah, and it's like we often talk about the names that we know, and like you said, there's the names that we don't know. And so a lot of folks didn't know about Elijah Mclean, who was murdered by police in Aurora, Colorado, until this summer, but he was murdered over a year ago. And so those are the things that are pressing in our community that we need to be able to ensure that folks understand we're trying to represent their voices, but also we need everybody out there. Black Lives Matter is just not a fancy Twitter hashtag, and it's also not something that you can only do or say because you want an Instagram photo. You need to get out there. If you actually believe Black Lives Matter, then you'll get out in these streets and you'll chant Black Lives Matter, and you'll be doing the work to see policy changing in that way.
I completely agree. And just this summer, there was so much performative activism, I saw, personally, my friends, they just posted a black square for Black Lives Matter, and that was, the end of it. Meanwhile, I was marching out there with my friends. I was actually there on May 29th with you, and I was on your Instagram page. And you really did inspire me to, be more involved.
I'm honored and excited to see you continue to get out there and get active.
Yes, it's really amazing. So I just want to ask, what do you think are the best ways for youth to get involved? Because I do know you help promote a lot of student-led protests.
Yeah, utilize social media to your advantage. And then also really figure out a cause that you're passionate about. You can't sit here and talk about that you believe Black Lives Matter and you're going to do that black square and then call it a day. You can't say that you believe that Black Lives Matter, but then you'll put a but and then try to negotiate which Black Lives Matter. I know there were some folks that were not supportive of Jonathan Price, who was murdered by police in Texas because he actually wasn't a supporter of Black Lives Matter and he was a black man. He was still killed senselessly by the police, and his death and all of the others that we have lost still need to have their names being shown.
Yes, I completely agree. And the thing that I do see a lot is people are like, well, their death was very tragic, but they should have done this. But no matter what someone does, I don't think that really justifies their death, which not many people understand.
Yeah, some folks folks also have to really understand that Black Lives Matter is an intersectional movement. It's not just about black men. It's about
Mhm.
black non-binary folks, black LGBTQIA plus folks, black trans folks, black women. That is that is what we need to be proclaiming, is that this is an intersectional movement because Black Lives Matter was actually started by two black women, or not two black women, a group of black women that some of them were actually queer. And so, like, we have to be able to understand that this movement was not built around one individual or just a one group of people.
Yes, I say that all the time. I talk about how it's all black people, not just like picking and choosing. And especially like it's black women who are on the front lines who are really creating this movement. And I feel like they're the ones who are not being protected, if that makes sense. And I always tell my friends, like, yeah, it was literally a black queer woman who founded the Black Lives Matter movement. So we really need to work as a community to unite all black people because if there's division between, homophobia, transphobia, we're not really getting to our mission and our goal.
Yep, yep. You took the words right out of my mouth with that one.
Yeah. So I just want to ask, like, what ways can you protest safely? Because I know that's a concern for many youth because, it gets very dangerous. Like, I know I was personally tear gassed, but luckily I was prepared with, like, doing a ton of research of what to bring just in case, dangers happen. So I just want to ask you, with your experience, what would you do to be safe out in the streets protesting and marching?
One, I would say young people do not participate in riots.
Yeah.
Those are not productive for you all because we want to make sure that you all make it home every night.
Mm-hmm.
There's groups of folks that believe in protesting in different forms. I'm not going to police their protest. However, I'm not going to condone violence and not going to condone young people getting out there in the streets as well. And so I want young people to be able to protest safely, but also be in a position to where they can still utilize their First Amendment rights. So find out issues that you're passionate about. Like it doesn't. You don't always have to protest about BLM to say
Mm-hmm.
that you're a protester. Like there's multiple ways. Like directly after this call, I'm getting ready to go speak at a period like a period poverty rally and really just destigmatizing periods in our schools for students that menstruate and ensuring that we are providing the safe access to menstrual hygiene products in every one of our schools. And so that's something that I'm getting ready to champion as a school board member here in Denver, is providing universal access to menstrual hygiene cups and menstrual hygiene products. And so those are things that you find you a plethora of things to protest about. Trust me, my protest is not only just to Black Lives Matter. I've protested homelessness. I've protested gun rights or gun violence in our communities. So those are ways that folks can give back to their communities.
Yes, that's awesome. I completely agree because I know I'm passionate about activism for many things, such as, women's rights, for immigrants and for like climate change. So I think it's very important that youth don't only just focus on one subject, because if we're being honest, there's many things that affect our daily lives.
Yep.
Also, just one more thing. I know a lot of people watching, a couple of my friends, they want to know how to get more involved with organizing protests and marches. So do you have any tips or suggestions or feedback on how to do so?
Yeah, folks should follow me on social media to just bring that's how I usually post up stuff. I'm not the only person that posts things on social media for us to stay involved. I usually try to keep stuff, try to keep stuff out there. So like there is BLM 5280 that has that posts a lot of good stuff to follow. My handles on Instagram and Twitter are Tay Anderson CO. And so those are ways for you to get involved. Like right now, I'm in the middle of planning a national march with several others from across the country in DC actually a week from today. And we are expecting a couple of thousand of folks. We have amazing speakers like Little Miss Flint to protest the SCOTUS nominee and to let the Senate know, like, don't confirm another Supreme Court justice until we have had the chance as American people to elect a president that represents our values, or even if the current occupant in the White House wins, that the American people should have a say in what our next Supreme Court justice will be. So, and then organizing a protest, if you guys ever need help, just hit me up and I'm always down to support and to give advice. And so we're all in this together.
Yes, thank you. That was very inspirational. I'll be sure to let you know if I ever do, because I do want to get more active, with marches, because I feel like that's one of the best ways to protest. Because really being silent about these issues, it really doesn't help anything. It pretty much gives more power to the oppressors.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So what is the national march gonna look like? Are you expecting thousands of people to be there? Are there going to be many speakers? Are you personally speaking there?
Yeah, so I'll be in DC. I'm bringing about 40 Coloradans out with us to Washington, DC next weekend, where there will be thousands of folks descending on the stairs of the Supreme Court. And we will be protesting and hear amazing speakers like Little Miss Flint from Flint, Michigan, Deja Fox, a reproductive justice advocate. We'll be hearing from several Black women that are in different movements. And then also we're going to be uplifting BLM DC and some of the work that they're doing. And so we have a lot of things planned for that day. It's going to be an amazing experience. We have a Coloradan that's speaking. Her name is Olivia Caudell. She's 13 years old, and she's an LGBTQIA plus rights activist. And she is going to be representing our state on the national level. I'm so excited about welcoming her to DC for the first time to debut in front of a national crowd of saying, you know what, we need to have our voices heard, because this next Supreme Court nominee will be the person that will be on the courts as long as most of us will live.
Yes, that's amazing. So we got a question in the chat. It's, what are other ways that youth can promote change?
Yeah, we can promote change by not only just talking about access to protest, but also getting involved in voting. If you're 16 years old, you need to register to vote. Go to iwillvote.org and register to vote right now. If you're 18 years old, you need to vote. We have 24 days until the most important election happens that will be in our lifetime. And then after that, we have the ability to start looking at other elections. Every election matters, from local to state to federal. You need to get out there and to utilize your voices and get out to vote.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all we have for today. I really want to thank you again for taking the time to speak. And I feel like your speech was very informative. And if you do want to get involved with more protests, especially in the Denver area, be sure to follow Director Anderson on Instagram and Twitter.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, so our next guest is one of the co-founders of 5280 Black Lives Matter. Her work is committed to basically promoting social, educational, and economic change and justice within the Denver community. I'm proud to introduce Amy E. Brown.
Good morning. Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Joslin. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It has been a pretty relaxing day so far.
Good. That says a lot considering you and your colleagues are running this major event.
Yeah, I had to wake up pretty early to get prepared. My mom was like, "Why are you up so early?" But it wasn't even that early, so I don't really know what she was talking about.
It's good to see you were up and ready to go.
Yes, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it a lot.
Oh, I appreciate being invited. It's been great to listen thus far, and it was so beautiful watching the opening, seeing all of the beautifully diverse faces, and talking with you earlier this week. This has been a great experience already.
Yes, and even Director Anderson mentioned 5280 Black Lives Matter, about how youth can get more involved and hear more about protests and ways to, be a better advocate.
Yeah. Thank you, Tay, for the shout out.
So I just want to ask you your story about what basically pushed you to co-found 5280, the Black Lives Matter chapter here in Denver.
Sure. Thanks for asking. So just to clarify from the previous remarks, because we're an affiliate of the global Black Lives Matter network, I did want to name that Black Lives Matter was founded by 3 Black women, Patrice Colors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi, 2 of whom are queer. And we always want to give honor to the founders and the work that they've done. Basically, our chapter here in Denver was formed and founded because a group of people, dope activists, were doing really great work in addressing anti-Black racism in Denver. And while we were doing that work, we were experiencing a repetition of what has happened in movements of the past, in which the groups who are addressing the systemic racism and the problems are also inflicting harm on some of their members. So just like in larger society, those who are most marginalized, whether it is women, whether it is queer folks, trans folks, unhoused people, even within these movements for change, those more marginalized people can experience harm at the hands of often leaders who can be charismatic, cis hetero men, to be quite honest with you. And that's something that we've seen in movements of the past. And unfortunately, it's something we still see in movements now. And we were experiencing that here in Denver. And a group of us just decided that there had to be a way that we could do this work in uplifting Black people, Black lives, and Black love without subjecting ourselves to pain and harm. And we learned of the Black Lives Matter Global Network and that it was led by Black women and queer women and centering queer folks, Black trans women. And the values very much aligned with what we were looking for, which was a space where women and non-binary folks, trans women could be safe, centered, and valued as they did the very important, crucial work of centering Black lives and addressing anti-Black racism.
Yes, that sounds amazing. So you were talking about a safe place for queer and non-binary folks and transgender Black women. Is there basically a center you guys have where you have that safe space and you guys discuss things that are going on in society, give them resources? What type of work do you do for them?
So we don't have a physical center. We have a collective core of people. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we meet virtually most of the time. But in doing the work that we want to do in Denver, we're always asking ourselves the questions of, does this effort center the people who are most marginalized? Does it address and make sure we are seeing the needs of those on the margins, trans folks, unhoused folks, formerly incarcerated folks, presently incarcerated folks? I'm trying to pull up right now our chapter agreements that we go through every single meeting, because we have dope agreements that address our values. But basically, it's agreeing that we're a space that centers Black LGBTQIA+ folks, regardless of income, housing situation, gang affiliation, incarceration status. So we have a list of agreements as a group who works together to make sure that we are always staying centered on who we are here to serve first and foremost. And if there are programs we can offer, if there's financial assistance we can offer to those on the margins, we always try to adhere to those central focuses of ours about who it is we're here to serve in the Black community.
Yes, I feel like that's amazing. And it's really important that, especially Black Lives Matter, it's more inclusive to all Black lives, like you said, the LGBT community. And I think what you're doing is amazing work, especially with giving them resources of financial assistance and programs. And I feel like we do need more of that because, it's better if we unite the community and really help each other out to get towards one goal.
Absolutely. I think, we're really proud that in the month of October, we were able to offer 15 families $2,500 in financial assistance to make sure they could stay in their homes if they were faced with eviction or displacement because of COVID. Things like that, making sure that our families and our communities can stay here, can stay where they have family and stay where they have homes. We often get emergency assistance requests for folks who may be fleeing domestic violence situations or unsafe conditions. So being able to provide resources for our folks can sometimes just be the most basic form of Black love that we can show, because unfortunately, we live in a capitalist world, and there's not very far that Black people can go, especially Black people experiencing harm, without funds. So being able to provide funding for folks in need has always been something that we're proud to be able to do.
Yes, that's amazing. I do feel like systemic racism and capitalism are two of the main things actually that are preventing Black people from, getting towards the success and equality they deserve. And I just want to know, what importance do you think youth have in activism, and what ways can they get involved?
I think youth have all the importance. I think the voices we need to be listening to are the voices of our young folks and the voices of our elders. I think that is where the two main bodies of knowledge come from. Our young people really, y'all are who teach us what's happening on the ground, what you're experiencing in schools, what your education and curriculum looks like, what your classroom makeup looks like, what the processes are when you're trying to get into programs, into colleges. You all are the ones who let us know about racist experiences you're having on social apps and social media. Things that, I'm 39 now, I'm old, I wouldn't know. So without your voices and without the way that you have used social media, especially to amplify what you're experiencing and make sure the world becomes aware of what you're experiencing, we really would be in the dark about a lot of what's happening. People make jokes about it, but your generation's ability to whip out a camera phone and record things in a split second is the reason we know a lot of what's happening. So I think young people play a huge role in letting us know what is really happening in real time. And I think your varied skill sets, whether it's, technology, whether it's arts, whether it's, the creative arts, all of your different skills and the ways that you're able to use them bring so much promise and possibility to the movement. There's ways that young people have brought art, visual arts, into activist spaces and protest spaces that have been beautiful and powerful. We had in 2017, when we interrupted the parade, a group of young people made an art exhibit of tombstones honoring those lives that had been taken by law enforcement. And so part of this march marched past basically a grave site so that we were reminded, and all the elected officials that were walking past and marching had to be reminded of these lives that had been stolen. And that was an idea that came from young people and was executed 100% by young people. That was so powerful. So I think you all bring so much possibility and new avenues to express these ideas into movement spaces that, I learned so much from, and we all benefit so much from.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I didn't even think about the arts and how that really affects the whole movements. And I basically want to ask you, what are the best ways, especially considering this year and the election, do you think people should use their voice and to speak out about what's right?
The best ways. I think it's really important to honor the fact that everyone comes to issues of protest, issues of disruption differently. Everyone's different. So you may not be a person who wants to show up to a march or feels comfortable or safe showing up to a march. And that's fine. I think part of the work that we do in Black Lives Matter 5280 is, getting past the idea of, we're trying to build the world we want to see. I think we really try to embrace the idea that that world is here now. We need to live our lives as if that world is here now. A world in which Black people are free to live, love, thrive. It's here. So what does it look like to wake up every day living in that world? Does it look like bringing flowers to the elderly grandma at the end of your block? Does it look like giving selflessly to a Black person in need? Does it look like saying hello to people on the street that you may not normally say hello to? What does it look like to live your life as if the world that we're building is here? I think that question pushes people beyond the getting in the streets and protesting, which is important and crucial and something you've seen me do and all of us do. But in terms of our daily lives, what can we do in our daily lives to make Black Lives Matter, to live our fullest selves and show ourselves the most Black love that we can? And I think that's a way that all young people can get involved. Whether it is waking up in the morning and looking in the mirror and like, my curls are popping, like, look at my curls, look at my thick lips. Yes, yes. Like, that's Black love. That's bold. That's activism right there. You walking through the halls and being like, sis, I love it. I love the outfit. I love your braids. Like that is love. That is living your life as if the world we want is here right now, being unafraid and unapologetic to show Black love to yourself, to your parents, to your teachers, affirming the people in your circle in ways that haven't been done historically, complimenting the things that people used to make fun of. Like, yes, I love your wig. Yes, wigs. Cotton candy blue wigs all day. I think pushing past, especially now that we're seeing such violent tactics used towards protesters, whether it's actual violence and tear gas or these horrible felony charges that have been brought against the protesters in Elijah Mclean's work. I think we have always wanted to think beyond the streets because that's not accessible for everyone. So what are ways from your own home in your own everyday life that you can make sure you're showing yourself that Black love and that you can make sure you're living your beautiful Black life in an unapologetic, free, beautiful, honest way? I think that's a really good question that young people can ask themselves every day. And it is a radical question and a radical way to live your life.
Yeah, I feel like that is especially important, especially for young Black women, because they always hear stuff about their hair. They always, people always call it nappy. And with colorism, I know Black dark-skinned women do experience a lot of violence. So I feel like the thing about showing ourselves love is very important, because then we'll be able to appreciate others around us so much more.
Absolutely. If people around you hear you shouting out, you know, your classmates' melanin, like melanin is glowing today. Like once people start hearing that actually having dark skin is not something we make fun of. She's getting hella props for her dark skin, for her beautiful glowing melanin. You know, we take that weapon away from people. The more we're able to affirm our own identities and the identities of our sisters, brothers, non-binary siblings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, that was amazing. I started like getting a tear down my eye. I just want to know more about your activism work, because just reading up on it, it was very interesting. So I just want to hear a little bit more about what 5280 Black Lives Matter has done with like marches, possibly vigils, and everything like that.
Sure. In 2015, we launched our campaign, which was standing on the shoulders of other people who have done this work to change the name of the neighborhood formerly known as Stapleton, which, as many of you know, was changed this year to Central Park. At the time when we launched that campaign, folks said it was impossible. Folks said we were terrorizing the neighborhood because we put up flyers. But it's possible, just like we told everyone back then. It's possible, and it's not even hard. So we celebrated that victory earlier this year. Some people know that we disrupted the parade in 2016, which was a bold move and an important move. And I think a reason that a lot of Denver started to learn that we were here. A lot of the demands we made at that time still haven't been met. And I say that because when Black Lives Matter 5280 discusses marches, actions in the streets, we don't go into the streets if we don't have demands. We don't have protests without demands. In our minds, we are Black people, we are Black lives, and we have to center our own safety. So if we're going to get in the streets and put ourselves in harm's way, we're going to have demands attached to it. And that's something I recommend for anyone planning a protest. Demands are central and key. What are you out here asking for? What is the thing that you are willing to go home for once you're given it? So we had a number of demands. This was around the murder of Michael Marshall in Denver. And we demanded that the video of his murder be released. It was released later that day. The firing of the officers, are still working today. So it was a powerful action because a lot of people became aware of our existence. And we did get those tapes released, which was for the family. The family wanted that. We, in 2016, held a vigil for 135 hours at the tree across from the city and county building. This is when I met Tay. And it was around the murders of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. And at that date, which actually we started that vigil on July 7th, which was my birthday, and realized that we wanted to spend an hour at that tree for every single Black life that had been taken by law enforcement up until that point, which was 135. So we stayed there for 135 hours to mark each of those lives and honor each of those lives and provide a space for Black people in Denver who, you know, in Denver, often you can go a whole day without seeing someone who looks like you. So people really, in that season, they needed a place to go that felt safe, where they could see people who looked like them, people who were experiencing the same things as them. And we were really honored to be able to provide a space and hold a safe space for them to honor these lives and honor each other and laugh together and cry together and rage together. So we stayed out there all 135 hours, which I was very proud of, and built beautiful relationships with community. Later that year, we went to Standing Rock to be in solidarity with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline, which has been defeated. So we are hugely proud of that. And I do want to name that I'm speaking to you right now on land that is land of the Arapaho and the Ute people. So we went to Standing Rock in 2016. We launched our Freedom School in 2017 so that our Black babies had a place to go where they had Black classmates and Black teachers. And actually, our Saturday Freedom School is happening right now as I speak to you. So we've been, year in, year out, we've been doing things sometimes out in the streets, sometimes in the classroom, sometimes confidentially providing aid, just depending on the needs of the people, which continue to change.
Thank you very much. I think that's all we have for today. Your presentation was amazing. Like I said, it also made me shed a tear. You really got me emotional on this live stream. Thank you very much. You really, truly inspired me, and I hope you did the same for the audience. And I just want to thank you again for really speaking on our festival.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of the people who worked so hard to put it together. Thank you to you, Joslin. You're an inspiration to me. Just the 2 times we've talked. I hope we stay in community for a long time. Tell me, am I staying around for question and answer?
I think this is all the time we have.
Okay. Yeah. Dope. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.